So I am really proud of this lesson plan. It's I think one of my strongest lesson plan so far. I'm very proud of it because I feel like this is the first time that I've had a lesson plan that was so aligned. And that is because I was listening when you said start with your standard and your objective. And I did that. And it was really hard because I really just wanted to go out there and find like the coolest, virtual field trip activity that I could find. But I didn't. I started with the standard. And then having Dr. Police's class where we broke down the standard and the verbs and the nouns and all that, that was really helpful to have that happening at the same time because that made it very clear what was expected. So anyways, I'm really proud of this lesson plan. So I did a Pear deck, and my brochure, I hope this is okay, but I thought it was really cool. My brochure is the Pear deck because that is the guide that carries them along through the activity and tells them this is what is next, this is what's next, this is what's next. And it's very clear and it's very easy to follow and it's very interactive. So I hope that's okay. I mean, it can be printed out and then you have that physical thing. I don't think that the physical thing was really what you were going for with that. Anyways, so in this class, this is a very diverse class. There's 3 students get pulled for ESL and 1 is on consultation. And part of my accommodation for that is that there's 4 groups of 4, and they're doing this virtual field trip in groups of 4 together. And there's 1 of these students, ESL students, per group. So you don't have a whole group of students who are like struggling to keep up. They have that peer support. And then on top of that, every slide that has like typed instruction, I did a recording of myself explaining those instructions or, laying those instructions out, and they just click the button right here to listen to it. And I'm not going to play it, but it's slowed down. So I'm not like rushing through the instructions. It's very clear. Draw or type some things you already know about people, families, and communities in this region. It's slowed down like that so that they can follow along. And then can be printed if need be, so if the group wants to move on, they still have that. Going down back to it, accommodations. And then on top of that, there's also an open-ended early finishers activity at the end of the field trip, which is just like a big question to think about. Excuse me. So getting to the activity. So when the teacher is going to be let me first say, this is right here in my verification and rationale, I lay out that this is not just one lesson plan. This is part 2 of a 4-part unit on individuals, families, and communities. And you can see that from standard 4.2. Each unit is about 9 weeks. And this is part of what I'm so excited about for this lesson plan. It's repeatable. It's so cool that it's repeatable. All you have to do is replace the videos. So everything in the entire Pear deck it's like, you know how a story is timeless. It can apply to like any time period. This is placeless. So yes, it's on Mexico for this particular day, but you just wash, rinse, and repeat. And tomorrow it could be on Syrian or Peruvian or Lebanese peoples. You just put in different videos and all the instructions are the same. And so students know what to expect, but it's still all different information and they're still learning something completely new. And they're just getting better and better at that thinking exercise and that communicating exercise. And I think that's so cool. So yes, the unit takes place in 9 weeks. This lesson plan takes place in 1 day, but you can repeat it for a week or 2 weeks, depending on, what stage you think your students are at. Like, do they get it? Have they really processed that concept and made the connection? Are they getting what you're trying to feed them? Or specifically not feed them? Are they getting what they're constructing for themselves? Anyways, so, yeah, and then there's a whole bunch more stuff in there, but there is one thing that I wanted to specify for the purposes of this class. The standard is compare the daily lives of families together in America and across the world, yada, yada, yada. And then the objective is first my affective. Students will work cooperatively in learning groups to explore different facets of Mexican or somewhere else life, both here in America and in Mexico through videos they watch on their tablets. And then students will engage in respectful and meaningful discussion of the similarities and differences between Mexican life and our lives through the use of a conversation guide and Pear Deck. So that similarities and differences and the compare, that's what I wanted to specify right here. The term comparison, for the purposes of this class, is an active evaluation. So it's not compare as opposed to contrast. Here, we're including both what is similar and what is different because I want them to make that connection. When we're comparing things, we're talking about how are they similar and how are they different, and make the connection of similar and different and that they're related to one another. So it's not like mutually exclusive things that are similar and things that are different. Things that are similar can have differences as well. So you see what I'm saying? I thought that was really important. Comparison needs to include both of those things. So we're not like, now we're comparing and now we're contrasting. Moving on. So the week prior, here we go. Procedures. The week prior, we're building up to this field trip. And so the students know that it's coming. And we're covering, what's it going to look like? What's the basic itinerary? We're going to be grouping together. We're going to be watching videos. We're going to be discussing those videos. And the field trip is going to take us to a place. Today, Mexico. Tomorrow, Beirut, maybe. Who knows? And the expectations. These are things that are in the assessment. So we're going to be really making clear what's going to be expected of you, because not just because you're going to be assessed, but because we want you to understand what's being expected of you so that you know how to meaningfully engage in this activity. We're not getting derailed because we're having all these hiccups, it's going to be really clear. We know exactly what's expected of us, and we're going to have lots of fun because we're not wasting a bunch of time doing all this other side stuff. I'm taking forever. I'm such a talker. Okay. The day before the field trip, and I'm thinking of this as like the Friday before the field trip, and the field trip is going to be on Monday. The teacher is going to place all these artifacts around the classroom so that when they come in on Monday, they're like, oh yeah, today's field trip day. Look at all this stuff. And they want to touch it. And the teacher's like, nope, can't touch it yet. We got to do our field trip first. Then we're going to look at these things and we're going to examine them and we're going to talk about them and what their purpose is, where they came from, like what their meaning is, so on and so forth. So like pottery would be a really good idea. I think I'm saying this right, molcajete, which is like an herb or spice grinder. Maracas are fun, always fun, as long as it's not like cheap dollar store maracas, like authentic maracas. And then posters and images are good too, like big posters up all over the classroom that give like this really festive Mexico atmosphere and get the kids really excited. And like bunting is good too, which you see in one of the videos. So they come into the classroom and all those artifacts are around and they're getting them pumped about it. And the teacher groups them into their groups, and you're going to have one expert per group, which is going to be that person who like we designate to speak for the group or, do the drawing for the group. If everybody's not comfortable with drawing, we can tell this person what to draw. And each group has one tablet, and the teacher pulls up the Pear Deck on the smartboard and starts the presentation so we can get the process of putting the code in and getting the groups all logged in. So we're like ready to go. And while the teacher is waiting for them to all get logged in, she's reinforcing that instruction. And we're going to do 2 slides together so that we get it real clear. This is exactly how it works, guys. No hiccups. And then reminding the students that all the instructions are in the presentation. It's in written and audio format. So if you need that extra support, you can listen to, just click the button and you can listen and hear. And then model that for the students. And then once they've all logged into Pear Deck, start this super cool music that I got going right here. The lo-fi hip hop radio. I love this because it's like sound. The sound is really relaxing and encourages it encourages concentration, but it's also the video. My CT uses this and I am in love with it. Just seeing her up there working hard makes me want to work hard. That's great. But then also there is see if I can't pull it up, a sand timer, which I had earlier. There it is. So we set this thing for, that's weird, 45 minutes. We set this thing for 45 minutes. Come on. It was cool. There we go. Okay. Click start. Not only do we have the countdown timer down here, but we also have this visual understanding of, okay, this is how much time has passed. This is how much time we have left. So right now, it looks like we got all the time in the world. But once the clock really gets going and you're like 2/3 of the way into it and you see how far down that sand has gone and you're like, guys, we got to pick up the pace. We're running out of time. We've still got 2 more videos left. I think that's really helpful for students, not just for the purposes of this activity, but also, excuse me, my throat, but also Dr. Fonkert would love it because it's like making that connection between, this activity you're doing right now, but also that mathematical connection between time and what does time look like. I think it's cool. So you'll have that going, but I'm thinking you'll have that going like on the side, but you'll also have the hip hop radio going. So this would be full screen, and then the timer would be like off on the side over here. Not full screen, but just on the side. That's my thinking. Where'd you go? Oh, no, I was at it. Okay. There we are. Okay. So got the timer going. And then lost my place. Okay, got the timer going. Start this. Okay, so we're on slide 2. We're reinforcing those expectations once more. And then once all the kinks are ironed out, every group understands what we need to do. Now we go. Begin our field trip. Show you this. No, right here. Yeah, well, we'll do it right here. So this is the next slide. The first 2 slides are, let me back this up. 7 minutes, my butt. Okay. This is just my Google Classroom that I put super tons of work into because I think you mentioned it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I had to have one. So downloaded Bitmoji, got my succulents, my whiteboard, even my rug. Love it. This is the next slide. Draw or type some things you already know about families. And then they can click on the audio right there, or actually it's down here. And then they can just draw whatever. And this would be something that we've been talking about for the past week. Because, again, this is like at the end. Then go to the next slide. Let's go on a field trip. These are instructions. This is what it's going to look like. And if you finish early, this is your big question. And all of this is in the audio. I explain everything here slowly, clearly. And it's really easy to follow because it's so simple. Start the video. Oh no, my little thing didn't show up here. Ugh. There's supposed to be a little lady right here that says something. Oh, wait, no, it's on the next slide. That's right. Okay. Start the video. Discuss amongst yourselves. This is in the audio. After you watch the video. What's similar? What's different? These are reminders of the things that we've been talking about in class. And then after you're done with the discussion, start the next video. Repeat until there's no more videos. And then after you run out of videos, if you finish early, here is your big question, which if you have time to talk about this, you're definitely going to be talking about this until everyone's finished, until the sand timer runs out. Here's the video. This is just a little expectation on the side. Pause if you have a question or comment. So don't just start talking over the video, which is something we've talked about in class like 3 or 4 times last week and this morning. They just press play and then go to the next slide when that video runs out. And for some of the videos, like the YouTube video is maybe 20 minutes long, but Pear Deck, or maybe it was Google Slides, one of the two allowed me to like start at a point in that YouTube video and then end like 7 minutes later. So it's going to automatically, it's not going to make them watch the whole video, just the clip that I want them to see. Because ain't nobody got time for a 20-something minute video. Then discuss. Here we are again. Just in case you forgot. And we've got our audio. Just in case you forgot. These are the things we're talking about. And then the next video. Love this one. This was super cute. And she was super cute. She was very funny. Here's another little side prompt to get you thinking. Do you recognize any words they use for food items? Because a lot of them are very similar. Or not an American word at all, but you've heard it before. That's where it came from. Then, once again, discuss. What is similar? What is different? And we're walking around and we're assessing as a teacher the entire time. And students aren't starting these videos at the same time because one group may have taken longer to draw out what they know about this region than another group. And the teacher needs to be paying attention to that. Which group started their videos first? That's probably the first group that I'm going to go around to assess. Which group started their videos next? That's probably the next group that I'm going to go around and assess. If we're paying attention, we're walking around, we're registering these things, and that's like the order that we're going to be walking around the classroom, and that way we're not bouncing all over the place trying to assess everybody at the same time. That would be craziness. But we can actually do this. And that's part of why that activity was at the beginning. And also so that we could assess those affective objectives a little bit and then kind of focus on the standard objective, if that makes sense. Then we've got our next video. Do you recognize any words they use for food items? Wait, that's not right. I replaced this. For Pete's sake. I have to fix that. One more discussion. And then big question. That's not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be talking about it, not writing about it. Shoot! I'm going to have to do this video again. So then after we're done, we are wrapping up. 5 minutes before the sand timer goes off, teacher is going to remind students that they have 5 minutes to wrap up their field trip. Then the sand timer goes off. We're closing out the timer and turning off the lo-fi beats. We could probably keep the lo-fi beats going because I like them. Bringing attention to the front of the class. And we're calling on group experts to talk about the similarities and differences that the group talked about from each video. And it's going to go in this particular order because we want to give adequate time to similarities and to differences. So if we're saying, hey, what similarities and differences did you notice from video 1, group 1? And we spend, most of the time talking about similarities and maybe we notice one difference, well, then differences didn't really get their due time. And and maybe there were a lot of differences, and maybe a lot of those differences are worth noting. Or maybe there was a lot of similarities and those are worth noting, and we spend all of our time on differences. We want to make sure that we talk about both of them as much as they need to be talked about. So we're calling on some groups to talk about similarities. Then we're calling on some groups to talk about differences. Then we're going on to the next video. Calling on some groups to talk about similarities. Calling on some groups to talk about differences. And then if we want to talk about those together at any point, if we want to, say how a similarity and a difference is related, for whatever reason, we can do that. And then we don't want to call on every group to talk about similarities for every video because we'd be at this forever. But we do want to make sure that each group gets a chance to talk about similarities and differences. So that's why I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and it actually works out really well. Every group gets a chance to talk about similarities and differences, just not necessarily for every video. And then if there's still time after because that shouldn't take very long, that discussion, but if there's still time, we can call in the group experts from the groups that were able to discuss the big question, which we should notice if they got to that. And they can be our jumping off point to have a class discussion about the big question because it's a good question. Did I actually show that? Yeah. What do you think it would be like to move? We've got our audio. What do you think it would be like to move from this country to your country at your age? See, I I was kind of uncomfortable with this, but I really didn't want to put Mexico in there because I really didn't want to have to make very many changes. I wanted it to be placeless. What do you think it would be like to move from this country to your country at your age? What challenges would you face if you could not speak the language? Big question. And then once all of that has come to an end, we can bring out the artifacts and everybody can touch them and examine them and we can talk about them. It's so exciting! Assessment! Okay, so we got a checklist and it is a super easy to execute checklist, okay? And it correlates with the rubric really well, and I think it's really cool. So here's our rubric. For example, verbal. The student cooperates with group members to work toward the goal by participating respectfully in all 3 aspects of group discussion, taking turns speaking, remaining positive and supportive, and projecting their voice so as to deliver their thoughts and opinions to the group with clarity. Well, what if they only do 2 of 3? Or what if they only do 1 of 3? Oh, well, that's exemplary, proficient, or developing. And if they don't do any, that's emergent. So then we go up here to our checklist. Check it off. Check it off. Check it off. Did you only check 2? Well, we know exactly where that goes. Da-da-da-da-da. Only 2 of 3. Proficient in that area. And then back up here. Did they have, well, go down here to the rubric. Similar and different. Observes the similarity between Mexican life and his or her own life in each of the 3 videos. Well, did they only make an observation in 1 video or in 2 videos? Did they not participate at all? Did they not talk about any of the similarities or differences? Oh, well then, none of those are checked off. So, emergent. Does not observe a similarity between Mexican life and his or her own life in any of the 3 videos. Super easy if you read the instructions. So they just have one of these for each student. And they can go around and they can pay attention. And you can pretty much tell if a student's not participating, excuse me, you know that they're not participating and you're not going to be checking off any of those, or you're going to be encouraging them to, hey, participate, let's join the conversation. Are you watching these videos? You know, I mean, as a teacher, you kind of get a sense for these things. You know what students you need to be paying attention to, and you know which students are definitely participating. They're involved in the conversation. So that's my assessment that I'm super proud of. And that's pretty much the whole presentation. It's interactive and it's also very, very cute. And it's super, what's the word I'm looking for? Super